sit. This is Dexter, and this is Dexter's roadmap to success. Now Dexter is, as you can see, he is a herding breed, and herding breeds need more rules and structure than other types of dogs. Now you're going to hear kind of a raspy sound from him. It's his version of doing demand barking. And when he does it, he gets attention from his guardians. Now, anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're amplifying and reinforcing. This includes unbalanced states of mind like excitement, fear, stress, anxiety. Now, he's barking to get his guardian's attention. If she looks at him, that means it's working, and that will make him continue to demand bark. Now, normally he doesn't have this raspiness, but his guardian's a little bit concerned since the rest of his behavior is fine under he just has a dry throat. Okay, now if when a dog nudges me or barks at me and I give it attention, I'm telling the dog, yes, you're in charge of me. When you tell me what to do, I do it. And after a while, that gives the dog the impression that they're not just the same status as the humans, they're responsible for the humans. Now, herding breeds are designed to be responsible for others. And so if we give the dog an impression by a lack of rules, lack of structure, and let the dog tell us what to do, then after a while, the dog thinks it's responsible for us. Now, how dogs mostly try to help us out and contribute to our group is by being in charge of security. And he's already in charge of security because of his breeding. So what we want to do is help him develop some self-control. One of the ways I like to do that is by delaying gratification. Before he goes through a door, I make him sit. And if he doesn't sit within 1 second, I tell him, go to the door, I'd say sit. If he doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I walk away and wait 1 minute. I come back after 1 minute and I say, sit. Tell him, don't ask him. If he sits, then I open the door. If he doesn't sit, then I walk away for 2 minutes. Next time I'll walk away for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. And I keep on doing that, Dexter, until as soon as I go to the door and say, sit, he sits, sit. Remember, every time you give him a treat, the treat should go in the mouth first, he should do the command word after. After a while, then I do it with both directions. So I go to the door and I say, sit, for both directions. But then what I do, the next step is Dexter. Keep rolling, keep rolling. The next thing that I do, Dexter's going to get into trouble over here, so we're going to just keep this over here, and this will keep you occupied and win the shot. So the next step that I would do for that to delay gratification is go to the door, tell the dog to sit, and then I would put him on a leash, and then I would start reaching to open the door. When I have a dog that has a behavior problem, what I try to do is recreate that scenario later on in a controlled situation. And I break it down in individual steps and help the dog practice one step at a time. Passive training, we'll talk about that in a sec. Until that dog knows what to do during that step. So in this case, I want the dog to learn to stay. Just because the door is opening doesn't mean you can go through. I want you to wait until I say the word release. So the way I do it is I put the dog on a leash and I just reach for the handle. Now, just reaching for the handle, I might even make it a quarter of the way to the handle, and he gets up. So I stop, I tell him to sit. When he sits, then I reach again. And I'm not trying to reach all the way for the handle. I'm just trying to reach a little bit back. And I want him to stay seated while I just do this little movement. After a while, I can reach halfway towards the door, and then 3/4 of the way. And eventually I can touch the door, but I don't go ahead and open the door at that point. I just touch it and pull my arm back. And the idea is he stays seated throughout this. This is what I want him to do, is stay seated. When he stays seated where I can touch it, then I jiggle it. And that usually causes the dog to get up. I stop, sit. If he doesn't sit within a couple seconds, walk away, and then recreate the exercise later. Eventually he gets to the point where you can jiggle it as loud as you want, and he stays seated. Then I open it 1 inch and let it close. And then 2 inches, and then 3 inches, and then 5 inches. And I keep on, eventually I get to the point where I can swing it wide open and the dog just stays there because I haven't said the word release. Now, when I want to actually let him through there, I would touch his nose with the treat and throw the treat right outside the door. And then when he runs out and gets it, I say the word release. After a while, we put that in context. And really, when I'm at the door, I have to wait and hear a release. Then I can run through the door. So now we help the dog practice a new behavior. We're teaching them some manners. And we're doing it in a way where the dog is figuring this out on their own. When I stay seated throughout the whole process, then eventually I get to go through the door. If I try to get up and go through the door preemptively, they close the door, and then we have to stop and start this whole thing again. Dogs learn through repetition, consistency, and good timing. You have 3 seconds to correct or reward your dog for them to have the ability to make the connection. While 3 seconds is your maximum, 1/3 of a second should be your goal. So as soon as for the first part of this, I go to the door and I say sit. As soon as the dog sits, I try to open the door right away. That would be one of the rules we went over, and some of the ways we went over flipping the leader-follower dynamic in this house is to incorporate some rules and structure. So the dog already is not allowed to be on some furniture, but some furniture it is allowed on. I would say across the board, no furniture. for 30 days or as long as the problem's still going on. At that point, furniture with an invitation, and that's a one-time exception for good behavior. The other rules I went over is you have to, you're not allowed to be within 7 feet of a human who's eating. You're not allowed to be in the kitchen when people are eating food or preparing food. Let me see, we're gonna make the dog sit and wait until we get to all the way to the top or all the way to the bottom of the stairs and then call the dog up. So the dog, for dogs, whoever's in front is perceived to be in charge or the leader. And so if we train the dog to sit and wait for us to go through the door first, to go into the room first, go through the stairway first, now the dog is seeing us acting like leaders. Also, every time we enforce rules, we're acting like a leader in the dog's mind. We're not doing it aggressively. We're just saying, no, you're not allowed to do this. And I like to, like I said, recreate situations. If the dog wants to go outside, I go to the door and I say, sit, one time. If the dog doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I walk away, sit down somewhere, and I wait 1 minute. Then I go and I practice this. I go back to the door and I say, sit again. If he doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I walk away for 2 minutes, then for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. And eventually, as soon as the dog sits, boom, that door is open. And that dog learns on its own. When I sit, the door opens. When I stand up, the door stays closed. So we put the dog in a situation where it's learning as opposed to us micromanaging. And it's one of the concerns I had with this guardian is she's very structured and very organized, and it's great, but I found that she was being very hyper-specific about what she wanted the dog to do in every point along the way. Now, he's a kind of an insecure dog. At one point, we were walking into this room. She left the room and she said, come with me. He was already coming with her. So I think it's a habit that she's gotten into. It's going to take a little bit of time to get out. So maybe we want to come up with a word of, maybe we say bossy, or something that has a fun context. Remember, we like to use fun ways of interacting with dogs because they can read our facial expression. They know when we're upset and when we're not. So if our partner can point out times where maybe being a little bit over-directive, that might help the dog start developing a little bit better vibes and self-security. Now, I like him to learn how to stay. One of the things I like the guardians to do is to put him into a stay and then get up and go get a drink of water. And then come back and release him. Put him in a stay and go put on your shoes and come back and release him. Put him in a stay and go turn the pancakes over, or whatever it is. Helping him practice being alone with the humans in the house, but not being right on top of them, will help with his security. I'd also like the guardians to start training him some new tricks or commands. Dogs that are insecure are typically the ones that are more reactive, and little things bother them. Very secure dogs, confident dogs, they don't get bothered by all the little things. And so basically what I'd like the guardians to do is try to teach him a new trick or command each week for the next 8 to 12 weeks. It doesn't have to be hard. Just pick one, pick something that's easy, and practice that one trick exclusively throughout the week. At the end of the week, pick a new trick, and maybe the next guardian practices. And so we're flip-flopping back and forth. Now we have new ways to redirect him. It boosts his self-esteem, and it gives us other ways to burn off excess energy. And energy is a big problem for him. I think that he's getting right now about an hour's worth of exercise a day, and being a herding breed, he probably needs more than that. And being a young pup, he's still under 3, probably needs more than that. Now, I pulled out the laser. He liked chasing a laser. It might need to be a creative way. I would go up and down the stairs, one going all the way up and going all the way down. I count that as 1. And maybe start an exercise journal. Maybe he needs to do that 3 times a day, going up and down 10 times. And exercise is best done sprinkled throughout the day as opposed to just once for dogs, because they sleep and they recharge and they're ready to go again. Right now he gets a walk and then he plays a little bit of fetch, but we can maybe do some scent games. You can Google scent games and have him leave in the room, have him stay, and then hide some treats and bring him in here and have him hunt and find them. That's a great way for him to use his nose, which is a great way to burn some excess energy. We also went over petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is if the dog nudges me or barks at me or demands attention, if I give him the attention, I'm telling him, yes, you're the boss of me. Instead, when he nudges me or barks at me or paws for attention, I'm going to give him a counter order, tell him to sit. When he sits, pet him under his chin, say the word sit, and exclusively the word sit. Not good sit, not his name, just sit. If he's already sitting, ask him to come and sit over here, or ask him to lie down. He just has to do something to change his state. After a while, he will start coming in front of us and sitting down to prepay for attention. When he does that, make sure we do recognize and reward him. Try to pet him under his chin, and again, just say sit. Now, if we come in the room and we see our partner is petting the dog's standing, we say, paycheck. Paycheck means I think you may have forgotten to ask him to do something first. And that person is to stop petting, tell him to sit. When he sits, pet him on his chin, say, I asked him to sit, you missed it. It just helps the dog to see that we're not on our own page, so he should be on our page, not on his own page as well. Now, you have a watchword for what I call passive training, which is rewarding the dog anytime it does something we like. Every time the dog comes to you, you should pet it and say the word come. Well, after a while, come just means come to my human and get a reward. I like rewards, and so I'm more inclined to want to come to my human. The dog sits next to you, pet it, say sit. It lays down, pet it, and say down. The more that we reward dogs for desired actions and behaviors, the more the dogs will emulate those behaviors to get our attention. Most of us train our dogs to misbehave because when it steals remote control, we immediately get up and chase it. For dogs, attention itself is validated. So we want the dog to do things that we like sitting, coming, laying down. Flop is what I call that when a dog goes inside. Now, I don't know what he's doing on his back, but you can name all your toys. Chipmunk, Y, globe, whatever they are. And he's a smart dog. His guardians taught him to pick up all of his toys and put them back in the basket. Well, start naming the toys. The more that we use his brain power, the more confident, again, he's going to be. And again, more ways we can redirect him. Now, I went over a focus exercise. The guardian calls the command word a look. And I'd like her and her partner to practice this 5 times a day. Now, remember, when we do this, we're going to do it the different way that I showed her. And if you forget how to do it, message me and I can send you a link to the focus exercise. But you can keep your hands here. Don't move your hands and wait for him to look at you. As soon as he looks, raise your nose. Go straight to his mouth. 1 second up, 1 second towards the mouth for all 12 treats. And then you're going to do it in different parts of the house. And then eventually it's going to be, when he's looking up at you right away, that's 1 second, 2 seconds for the second movement. Eventually it's 1 second, 15 to 20 seconds on this last movement. So he's staring at your face the whole time. Now remember, practice it first inside, throughout the house, different places. Gradually work your way up to 15, 20 seconds. Then practice on the deck when there's nothing going on outside. And then practice it eventually, you'll go back to 1 second, 1 second. But eventually you can move faster. And eventually you get to the point where you're 15, 20 seconds on the deck. Then go do it on the yard. And also do it on walks. When you're walking, there's no dogs around. Look, he looks up at you, and as you're walking, you're raising that treat, and then you're going like this towards the dog as you're walking. So now you can redirect your dog, and you're helping your dog practice giving you its attention and ignoring other elements. Now, the best way to do this is when there aren't high distractions around. Eventually, the dogs, when they're practice, can avoid those high interest things and focus on you, or look in this case. But you have to build up there. I'd also like the guardian to practice the leave it exercise. Now, when she was doing that, at first, he was really going at the hand. So make sure at first when we're doing it, we're going to drop it like that. First, we're going to drop it, and we're going to get ready to cage it. After a while, we'll be able to drop it and just keep our hand here. And remember, we don't give the dog the treat until it looks at us in the face, and we treat from our other hand, and don't move this hand. Before I drop it, I want this hand permanently positioned, still, stationary. And then I'm going to drop it, and as soon as the dog looks at me, then I treat from this hand. And eventually, I'm going to drop it, and I'll put my hand here on my thigh. I'm ready to go back to guarding position if I need to. But the idea is the dog learns to drop and leave things, or not to drop, but to leave things for longer and longer periods of time. Let me see. Other rules: making him sit before we let him go up or down the stairs. He's not allowed to be out in the kitchen when people are cooking food. He's not allowed to be within 7 feet of any humans who are eating food. I apologize if I'm repeating these. We've reshot this video a couple times, so I'm forgetting what I did and which one or not. Now, if I forget any of these things, make sure you call or text me. I'm available for all my clients. If I don't hear from my clients, I assume everything's going great. If you have a question, you forgot what the third consequence is, text me. I'm here for you. I don't care how long after the session is. I don't charge for that. I want you to reach out. Now, petting with a purpose and passive training are probably the 2 easiest things the guardian can do that's going to have the biggest impact on the dog's behavior. Now, the whole time that he's been here, that I've been here, he's been panting, even if he's sitting and laying down. Now, I'm going to have the guardian tilt the camera and film him right now. Go ahead and just tilt the camera that way. Go ahead and film him. There you go. This is the calmest I've seen him the whole time that we've been here. He's not breathing heavy. He's nice and relaxed and content. We need to achieve more of this behavior all the time. Let's come back to me. The guardian works in the medical field, and for humans, when we are about to be in a bad situation, our body prepares ourselves for fight or flight by dumping cortisol into our blood. It's the stress hormone, accelerates our breathing, respiratory, all this fun stuff. Breathing, respiratory, I guess would be the same thing. Dogs also have increased cortisol levels in their blood, and I laughed the first time somebody suggested their dog has PTSD, but dogs can absolutely get PTSD. It's the same principle. They're in that heightened sense of alert with too much cortisol in their blood for too long. Now, it's important to remember anything our dog is doing when we pet it is we're going to amplify, including fear and stress. So if our dog is stressed, we're petting it to try to soothe it. We're going to amplify it. You can touch your dog and let your dog know I'm here with you without amplifying it. But the best thing to do is get your dog doing something else and take their mind off it, just like we do for humans. So playing a focus exercise, playing the scent game, or something else when the tractor's going by, or things along those lines can really help. Now, when the tractor goes by, I found some good success by basically doing a little bit of a version of the focus exercise, what I call it. The Guardian here calls it the look. So you can do a little bit of that. If he keeps on going over, then just hold the treat, smash one of these, and let him nibble on it in 3 or 4 bites. That was a big XL from him. He's nice and relaxed finally. But I think he's under-exercised. Right now he's getting about an hour's worth of exercise. If the Guardian can use a doggy backpack and fill it with a couple bottles of water. I pulled out the laser. He was a little bit aggressive with it, but in reasonable, I would be comfortable with him doing it in a limited capacity. So run him up and down the stairs, and each time up and down, that's a 1. And journal these things. And after a while, you'll kind of realize, you know what? If I get him at a half an hour walk in the morning, a game of fetch in the mid-morning, then we do the laser game about 2 hours after that. We play another game of fetch and take another short walk, and then another game of fetch, and then laser again at night. He's like a wonderful dog. Well, now we know what we need to do to recreate the exercise and the structure to put him in a position to succeed. Now, let me see, what else? The Guardian needs to make sure she's eating something before she's feeding him. Right now he's only eating once. It's late at night. I prefer the dog's eating twice a day, and I would feed him breakfast first. If he eats all his breakfast, then he gets dinner. If he eats just most of his breakfast, I'll give him dinner. I'm guessing the first couple days he's not going to eat breakfast at all. That's fine. Pick up the bowl, dump the food out, and put it back down there. Because he gets a mixture of wet and dry food, I would maybe leave it out so that we're not putting it in the fridge. Just put it in a Ziploc bag or something like that and leave it on the counter. It's not going to spoil too bad. And then basically, if he eats all of his breakfast, then he gets fed for dinner. If he doesn't eat breakfast, he doesn't get dinner. We want hunger eventually to become our ally, and eventually he eats. But when we give him food, eating is a very important activity for dogs. And sometimes he might need to be on medication or something like that and have to eat food when we're feeding him. We want the dog to be able to eat. And because it's such an important activity for dogs, if we eat first and have dominion over the food, that really helps the dog see us as more of an authority figure. Another rule should be the dog should wait until we're up and down the stairs first. For dogs, whoever goes out the door first or through the portal or into the car or down the door or down the stairs is in the leadership position. So for him, he should be waiting for the humans to go first. Now, the exercise that we have in the video above about the car, I'm not going to really talk about that for kind of an interesting reason. I'm not going to articulate it right now. But go through that and practice that. Recreate that situation when you can practice that. Now, we can put the dog in a position to succeed by exercising him good before we do that. Not too much. We want to find that Goldilocks zone where he's not too exercised, not too under-exercised. He has the right amount of exercise where he burned off that energy and he can actually focus on what we're doing. When you're practicing for training and really anything, always end on a good note, and always keep your practice sessions, unless you're trying to teach the stay or something that requires it longer than a minute and a half. Your practice sessions should be no more than 90 seconds at any one particular juncture. Always end on a good one, and then do something the dog likes to do afterwards. Throw the ball, rub his belly, or whatever it is. Let me see, what else? Is there anything else I'm forgetting that you... Use the escalating consequences to go over to disagree with unwanted actions and behaviors. Forget what those are. Message me. If you want a video on the focus exercise or what you call the look or the stay or any of those other exercises, please text me. I have videos I can send to you. I don't charge for that, and I want you to reach out and use me as a resource. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything's going great. Dexter, come. I like the Guardian also get in a habit of not come, repeating the command word. She has a tendency to repeat commands over and over again, and also micromanaging him. I don't think we talked about in this video. The Guardian, I think, has a tendency to, and he had a lot of problems when they first got him. She put in a lot of work, and you can tell he's a smart dog, and you can tell the Guardian put in a lot of work because he's really, really improved. But I think there's some carryover for that. I think that she's still kind of in that work mode. So I think that's why doing the training that we talked about, teaching him a new trick or command each week, you can really focus on doing your training mode then. And then we kind of let him go back to, we need him to kind of figure some of these things out on his own. But the more we do passive training and petting with a purpose, the better that he's going to be equipped to start doing these things that we like him doing. Sit. Sit. This is Dexter, and this is Dexter's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.